Associations. Okay, great. So we have some veterans. Terrific.
And
Cool. And nonprofits, yes, of course. It's not just a unique environment here in Washington, although, of course, we're, I think, the national world headquarters for associations. It's been my career as well. And it's taken me to 30 countries on 6 continents. I've had the opportunity to have dinner in the middle of the Eiffel Tower, and with 1 foot in Asia and 1 foot in Europe. It's enabled me to help organizations ranging from groups that work in maternal and child health to freight railroads, from dietary supplements to intellectual property. I believe there are literally 3 associations for every industry, interest, and field you can think of. We can play the dartboards of associations later. So it's personally very gratifying to me that you've all come out tonight to learn a little bit more about my world and hear from such a terrific panel, which reflects the diversity of the field, from healthcare to technology to the management of organizations that don't run themselves, to 2 leaders from the center, the epicenter of it all, at the American Society of Association Executives, my premier professional association. I'm very proud to be a certified association executive because I feel it demonstrates my commitment to helping people in professions and industries do more for the members and the constituents and the worlds that they serve. So I'm very passionate about that. And I'm pleased to I'm going to introduce Jennifer and Rebecca, and then you guys can introduce the rest of the panel. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer Baker is the Senior Director of ASAE Business Services, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of ASAE, the Center for Association Leadership. One of her responsibilities is direction of Association Career Headquarters, or HQ. You can hear more about that tonight as well. It's the premier provider of career and talent management resources for professionals who lead, manage, and work in associations. In her role, Jennifer regularly engages with association sector job seekers, career activists, and employers to address questions and challenges and share best practices. She's a native of Virginia, her undergraduate work at UVA, and master's in social work from Virginia Commonwealth University, also a CAE from 2005. Rebecca Hawk is a marketing specialist with ASAE Business Services and spends most of her time in marketing efforts also related to Association CareerHQ. If you're not subscribing there, and interested in the association field, I certainly recommend it. I probably get 6 notifications every day for different types of roles that are advertised in CareerHQ. For Rebecca, every day is different, but any given day she can be found squinting over an Excel spreadsheet, troubleshooting with current and prospective site users, and developing social media campaigns to drive engagement. Prior to ASAE, Rebecca worked as part of the digital marketing agency in her hometown in Oklahoma City, and her bachelor's degree is from Davidson College. So, Jennifer, Rebecca, I'll turn it over to you and take it from here, okay?
Thank you so much, Ken. Really appreciate it. And Eric and everyone from 40 Plus to have us, we really appreciate that. This is probably about the 4th or 5th time I've had the privilege to address this group over the years, and you guys do tremendous work. So thank you, and we're really pleased to bring you information about the association and nonprofit sector. We're going to talk more about associations tonight. That is the wheelhouse, really, for the American Society of Association Executives, but certainly nonprofits writ large we can talk about as well. And a couple of things. One, ask questions as we go along. We'll manage those. Rebecca's going to help us with time management. I wanted to spend a little bit giving you some grounding in the sector first, some stats. I know many of you raised your hands, so just bear with us because there are some folks in the room who may not be as familiar with this sector. Then we're going to have our great lineup of panelists we brought together. One of the best things about working in this sector are the great people, the smart people, and the very generous people who give their time to come out and do things like this. So you're going to have an opportunity to hear from them. And then we'll wrap up with some resources. Rebecca's going to talk about what this ASAE thing is and how we have resources that hopefully can help you wherever you are in your job search or your transition. So does that sound good? All right, great. So we're going to talk a little bit about Associations 101, employment, associationese, for those of you in the sector may know what I'm talking about, and then as I say, some of these notes. So I just wanted to start out with a simple definition. Those of you who've worked in the sector, right, you already know this, but a lot of people don't realize it really is pretty simple. A group of people banded together for a purpose. That's the IRS definition, actually, in its most basic form. And it's really most developed here in the United States. So for those of you who are familiar internationally, there are non-governmental organizations, but very often that sector is not as robust as it is here in the United States. It's really kind of embedded in the foundation of the US. So we've got lots and lots of associations here. In fact, does anybody want to take a guess at how many tax-exempt organizations are in the United States? Just any guesses? Any guesses? Thousands? Yeah.
15,000.
All right, good guess. I like that. How about 1.1 million tax-exempt organizations recognized by the IRS in 2013? 66,985 trade and professional associations. It's a lot. All over the country. They're everywhere. And over the bulk, the rest of those are charitable and philanthropic organizations. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference. And even though the IRS has been doing some work to kind of weed out, they instituted some new filings so that they could get some of these older groups that weren't really doing a lot off the books. There are new associations forming all the time. I actually just recently have fielded 2 different calls about people looking to start associations. And think about it, we're in a period of great change, right, in our economy. Some professions and trades and sectors are dying off and new ones are emerging, and they're going to have associations and professional societies. So that's what we're seeing here. This is a little bit about the role of associations in society. So, you know, we don't think about it, but really there's a stat somewhere that says 1 in 3 Americans are connected with an association of some sort. So think about it in your own lives. Many of them are going to be cause-based, so more on that nonprofit charitable side of the house. But a lot of them, if you're a member of an alumni association, if you're the member of a fraternity, a sorority, those are considered associations. So there are many, many kinds. You've got your 501c6s, those are going to be your trade and professional societies. And then the 501c3s is where you're going to find most of your foundations, your charitable folks. Those kinds of distinctions do make a difference, and we'll talk a little bit about this with our panel. The culture of organizations can be different depending on whether it's a trade association, a professional society, or more of a cause-based organization. And you'll want to think about that when you think about if you're coming into this sector, where is it you want to land? It's not a monolithic sector. John Graham, our CEO at ASAE, likes to say, when you've seen one association, you've seen one association. 63 million Americans volunteered through a membership organization. That was from 2013. So these organizations are doing really some amazing work out there to move society, and we'll talk about this a little more. And back here you can see, they provide that platform, and really anything you can think of, from the clothes you're wearing, the infrastructure that carries our fuel, electricity, product standards. An association has probably touched that along the way. So they really are very, very influential. I wanted to give a couple of examples. ASAE has an awards program, the Power of A Summit Awards program. These are some examples. The first 2 are award winners this year of some of the ways that associations drive social awareness. So the National Council for Behavioral Health has a program called Be 1 in a Million, and it is about mental health first aid. So think about what we're seeing in the news right now. More people talking about mental health first aid might be a really good thing, right? So that an association is behind those kinds of campaigns. They drive professional excellence. So, and this to me, I love this example because who here has heard of the Association of Equipment Management Professionals? Yeah, see, me neither, right? But they exist, and they have a whole world, and they're passionate about it. And what they realized was they could come together, and they actually brought together rivals. That's another cool thing in the business world, but they were willing to come together, play fair, and figure out how they could advance their profession, and they created a technology program to bring those professionals up to speed to do what they do better. So it's really interesting. You can actually go to our website, and we'll show that to you on seeing that. And of course, AARP. We have Donna Gupton here, and AARP is one of those advocacy organizations focused on older Americans. So they are advocating right and left every day. They educate the workforce. So one of the top providers of post-collegiate education in the United States are associations. They serve the community and write product standards, as we talked about. So this is a site I encourage you to visit. If you really want to get some flavor, you can look at videos from those 2 organizations that I talked about, as well as past award winners, as well as data related to the association sector that might be of interest to you. It's the Power of A. This is our advocacy campaign that ASAE runs to tell the world about the impact of associations in this country, and as I said, it touches every sector of the United States. So the power of it. So let's talk a little bit about structures. I touched on this a bit. So trade associations, these are the folks, generally speaking, their members are companies, they're organizations versus individuals. They're going to represent that industry or sector's interests, and they have a very particular culture. And I have never worked in a trade association. I don't know if any of you have out there. If you have, then you can comment on that a bit. But they tend to be a little different in culture than the professional societies. The professional societies represent what they say, a particular profession or career. We have Carmen Elliott with us tonight with the American Physical Therapy Association, working for physical therapist assistants. That's their focus. And those are most often individual personal membership. And then our philanthropic organizations, we talked about those, the American Diabetes Association, different associations that are really focused on a group of people, a disease, combating an issue. That's what they're going to be about. And they're most often donor-based. Why would you care about this? Well, one, it makes a difference in understanding the differences, right? So you don't want to walk into a trade association and ask about their individual members. You don't want to talk to a foundation about their members if what they have is donors, right? But also, you want to think about it, as I said, because you want to think about, where do I want to work? What do I want to be advancing? What do I want to think about? So let's talk about the focus a little bit. So trade associations very heavily, as you would imagine, on that government relations role, lobbying for the industry's best interests. Also, oftentimes public relations is very important. So I talked to a couple of you, your communications professionals, right? Associations are great about communicating, both professional and trade associations, but very often trade associations will run campaigns to promote that sector or industry that they're working for. Professional societies really focus on professional education. Makes sense. They've got their members. They want to make sure that they're remaining current, that their education is remaining up to standard. We can think of a number of professions that have moved from a bachelor's degree and now they're at the doctorate level. How did that happen? Often because the association moved that profession in that direction. Peer networking. Huge. Now, this happens in trade associations, but I would say in professional societies you have lots of that peer-to-peer kind of interaction, and prestige. So we think about the chair of the board, the chair of the program committee. When you get to speak at your National Association's conference in a professional society, that's going to be something you might put on your CV, for example. And then philanthropic organizations, they really focus on that belief in a cause. And the research funding is often very important. So they're really focused often on raising funds, different kind of focus. Structures and roles. Wanted to touch on this for those of you who have never worked in an association. It may feel a little different from the for-profit sector or the government sector, right? So associations are, we often say they're board-led, staff-managed. So staff are stewards of the finances, but the vision comes from the membership. So typically there's going to be a board of directors. They're going to set the direction of the association, and they have a board president or a chair, and their primary role, in addition to a fiduciary responsibility, is to hire and manage, and if need, terminate the executive director. The committees and volunteers are in a really well-functioning organization. Sarah may have a few things to say about this. In a well-functioning organization, those folks are going to work at the discretion of the board. The board will set up these committees. They'll have jobs. They'll come in and do their jobs, and then they'll move on. And they act in that advisory role. And then, of course, the staff in a well-functioning organization works under the executive director. And so the board should be managing the executive director, and the executive director manages the staff. Those lines are not usually that well drawn, but that's kind of how it goes. So a note about AMCs. We have Sarah here. Who knows what an AMC is? You can see it up there, right? Rebecca does. Yeah. Association Management Company. So as you're thinking about opportunities, we've talked about trade associations, professional societies, and charitable organizations, philanthropic groups. Association management companies are another place that you could consider. In the DC area, Smith-Buckland's a big one. Sarah's got a big group that she is involved with, and she'll tell you more about. what these companies do, sometimes they're nonprofit, but mostly they're for-profit, and they get hired by an association to do different functions on a contract basis. That could include soup to nuts. So when you call the association, you may think you're calling that staff, but they actually work for an association management company, or it could be a particular function. So do I have any accountants in the room? No. Great. So finance. Finance could be something that an AMC delivers. So you could be an accountant at an AMC, for example. So those are some groups that you can take a look at. So just a few quick stats about association employment, and then we're going to get our panelists up here. So membership organizations, which includes trade and professional associations, and this is very broad, religious organizations, grant-making and giving services, social advocacy organizations, and civic and social organizations. We can see they're a big employer in the United States. And I think people don't realize how big this sector really is. Associations generated a payroll of nearly $51 billion in 2013. That's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And you can see the wages here. So somebody that I talked to, I know, was wondering about benefits and what that's like. And I think there's a perception that if you're going to go to work in the sector, you're just going to take a pay cut. Just suck it up, you're going to have a pay cut. So I'm here to tell you that depending on where you come from, that may be true. So I want to tell you that it's not going to be true. But actually looking across pay scales and everything, it's very competitive, and especially in the DC area. So this is the average annual wage for employees of both the business associations and the professional societies was $73,490. Clearly, if you're in a senior role, you're going to be able to negotiate more. The size of your association that you end up working for or nonprofit will matter, right? And their sort of approach to compensation and benefits. Often, you will obviously have your dollar amount, but benefits tend to be generous. So you get not always, but you tend to find high match 401ks, for example. Generous leave policies. Many associations are closed the whole last week of the year. So look at the whole package. You may hear that a lot, but do look at the whole package because associations and some nonprofits are able to offer actually pretty good and competitive salary and compensation packages when they're all together. Some numbers here. Highest membership organization numbers: California, New York, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Florida. So they are everywhere. The DC area, nearly 3,000 associations and 36,000 other nonprofit groups are in the DC metro region. So there's a lot of employers here in this sector. Chicago and New York are also two big hubs for association employment. So we're going to talk about, and DMV, so this is what we care about, right? If the DMV were a state, it would rank third behind California, New York in total membership organization employment. You can see the stat there. And we do have a huge concentration, especially right here in the city, because of course folks want their advocacy. Often they'll be based here. Some reasons why to work for an association. If you weren't sure before, people are very mission driven, and if there's something, think about what you're passionate about, what you're interested in. I guarantee you there's a trade association or professional society that's somehow connected to that, or a cause-based organization. And people tend to share those beliefs and values. They typically have pretty strong cultures, and depending on the work you're doing, you can really be moving some big issues. Some really big issues, changing what's happening in society. So it's a pretty great place to work. Here are some staff functions. One of the things people don't often realize is that associations are basically social enterprises, right? So nonprofit is just a tax status. Don't forget that. Associations do generate revenue, but they put that revenue back into their mission. And so they need every kind of professional to function. So often we just hear about the executive director, but in associations, especially larger ones, you may have a whole level of C-suite, then you have a whole vice president level, you may have directors, senior directors, managers, up and down the line, depending on how large the association is. And we need all of these kinds of folks. So if you have experience in meetings, in finance, In IT, more and more technology is coming into the mix. Tech skills go a real long way in our sector. Research, huge, lots of research and analysis, data crunching. So take a look at this. If you have some expertise here, you may be able to find a fit in this sector. All right, how to speak associationese. So one of the things I will tell you is that acronyms reign supreme in the association world. So get familiar with some of those acronyms that you're going to be dealing with. I guarantee, in fact, when I was at APTA with Carmen, I think we had a list, like a 10-page list of all the acronyms that we had to know that people were throwing around. We certainly have them at ASAE. So take a minute and learn what are the acronyms in the world that you're interviewing in. It really does make a difference. Some things about interviewers in the association sector. For those of you who've interviewed with those folks, you can tell me if this rings true, depending on the size of your organization that you're interviewing with, and that really does make a difference. Most associations can have anywhere from 10 or fewer staff. The organizations that are represented here vary, and I'm going to have our panelists talk about that. But even for those larger staff organizations, these folks are wearing many hats. So you may be talking with an executive director who had a call with her congressional representative that morning. She turned her hat around and went out and tried to figure out the tech platform that she had to get a new bid on. Then she's going into planning with a board meeting and then doing the hotel bid for the next 5-year out conference. And now she's going to sit down with an interview with you. So those are the kinds of days that executive directors often have, especially if you're interviewing at the C-suite level. So press for time and resources. Not always. Small staff does not mean small budget size. It may not, so think about that. Change is a constant. It really is a constant. So try and get to know a little bit about the changes that that industry or that profession is going through. In a relationship business, I will tell you that association professionals, it sounds very trite, but they like to know who you know. They like to know who knows you. And they are in the business at the core of keeping members and donors happy. So they make relationships and want to see how well you can do that regardless of what your role is going to be. And then don't assume that they come from the industry or profession or cause community. They may or may not. Somebody was asking me, do I have to be a subject matter expert to be a CEO of an association? You don't. But you should know some things about what you're getting into. These are some things we're going to go through later. Some of this you'll know, but do your basic research, explain how you can bring value to the membership. So you're not always making your business case, you're making your case for how you're bringing value to executing on that mission and supporting the mission. I know this sounds so basic. I cannot tell you how many interviews, and I work for the subsidiary of ASAE, how many people have not even looked at our website and know there's a subsidiary. That's pretty basic, right? I mean, we have a website for us. So, like, do your basic homework. Don't make assumptions about the capacity or resources of an organization. Remember GuideStar, the 990. You can look up a 990 on GuideStar, and maybe Jason will have you talk a little bit about that. And please don't say company, instead say organization. Some folks have a little chip on their shoulders because we're not for profit. We're nonprofit. We're organizations. So. Okay, so now I'm going to bring up our panel. Carmen Elliott, Vice President, Payment and Practice Management, the American Physical Therapy Association. I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. Their bios were on the website as well, so we're not going to take up a lot of time with that. But please come up, Carmen, pick any seat you like. Sarah Meyer, Senior Vice President with MCI USA. Jason Spessard, MBA, CAE. Senior Director of Finance at the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology, and Donna Gupton, who is with AARP. So I had some questions to ask them, and we can run through those, and certainly as we go, if you have questions, please also chime in. So I'm going to give each of you guys an opportunity to tell us a little bit about the association you work for. If you can tell us the staff size, the membership type, and how many members you have. And what you really like about working in the sector generally. So, Carmen, would you start?
Right, so yes, as Jennifer said, I work for the American Physical Therapy Association. I am Vice President of Payment Policy and Practice Management. So basically what I do is provide strategic direction on ensuring that physical therapists are reimbursed or paid for what they do. I also ensure that patients have access to our care. And I also advocate on Capitol Hill with large insurance companies to ensure that they understand the breadth and depth of physical therapy. APTA is a $50 million revenue organization, and we have a staff size of 180. We represent over 100,000 physical therapists, physical therapist assistants, and physical therapist students throughout the nation. And even with that, we only have 1/3 of the market. So there's still a large market out there for us to tap into.
Yeah, I'm Jason Spessard. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology, which is another reason why we have acronyms, and we go by ARVO, because that is a mouthful, and you have to take a deep breath before you say it. We are a smaller organization. We have 35 staff. We have 11,000, 12,000 members. Our members are PhDs that do research for the visual function. Most of them are in academia or at pharmaceutical companies, things like that. And we are the society that helps bring them together and share their research, so that we're a science organization. We don't necessarily deal with clinicians, so people look at that and I was talking to somebody and said, oh, you need to refer me to an ophthalmologist. And our members are not the clinicians that see patients. So they're on the background doing the research of the visual function for those ophthalmologists, optometrists that would deal with the diseases. And to Jennifer's point, being a smaller organization than AARP and APTA, I wear a lot of hats. Even though I'm the CFO, I do a lot with we have a related foundation. The ARVO Foundation raises funds for research. And, I deal with a lot of fundraising and development. Excuse me. I also oversee our international chapter affiliate program. So our membership makeup is 11,000, but about 50% of our members work and live outside the United States. So we really have to spread ourselves out and know, policy in other countries. In the U.S., a lot of the science funding comes from the government. And that's the #1 funder. But in other parts of the world, it's private industry or individuals that went through, a disease related to their research. So that's just a little bit about ARVO and what I do and how it's not necessarily just the accounting of the organization.
I'm Sarah Meyer. I'm Senior Vice President of Professional Development and Credentialing with MCI USA. And I wear several different hats, but I'll talk about MCI USA first. So MCI is a global association management company, and hopefully by the end of my description, you'll have a sense of what an AMC is. My mother, after 11 years working at this organization, still doesn't get what I do. But in AMC, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, can provide all the services for the various associations and foundations from soup to nuts, or just portions of what the operations of what an association does. In most cases, our full-service clients, we're doing everything, and it's like the slide earlier said, where the board of directors hires and fires the chief staff executive. The boards of directors of these associations and foundations hire and fire us. So we have about 25 associations in the U.S. with our U.S. office that we manage, and we're doing those full-service clients. We do everything. We do accounting. We do their membership. We do their conferences. We work with the boards on the board meetings. We do everything. Their technology, their website, you name it. And the way most AMCs are set up, and each one is a little bit different. They have different departments, certainly, that are shared services. So accounting is a shared service, and creative, communications, and creative, graphic design. Then we have our fundraising and sales, and we have our IT. And those functions are all shared between the 25 clients. And so the contracts that we have with these boards of these associations and foundations have usually a set number of FTEs, full-time equivalents. And so you might have a full-time finance person, but you also might have 0.25 of creative. So the contracts are set in many different ways. You'll often have also core staff. So there may be that you have 3.0 core staff, and those people are working only on a particular association. But more often than not, you're going to have pieces of people. And so what's fun about that is you get to work in a lot of different areas. So these shared services I just mentioned, as I said, run the gamut in terms of the areas. But for the most part, the core folks are people like the executive director, people who are doing membership, people who are doing marketing. And it really depends on the size of the association that we work with, and how many FTEs and how many core staff they have versus shared services. For a lot of the associations we work with, they love it because it's a fairly economically efficient model. But also they like being able to not have to have necessarily be the employer of record. As the for-profit company, we are the employer of record for their association. So they have a management contract with us, and then the staff that work on their association work for our company. So I work out in McLean, in Tyson's Corner, but our U.S. Base now has several different offices. So we're out in McLean. We have offices just outside of Baltimore, in Miami, in Dallas, and New York. And that's our U.S. contingent. But MCI Global is actually a company with about 2,200 people now, in 32 different countries and 64 different cities. The majority of the folks that are in Tyson's are doing association management. We work mostly with full service clients as well as consulting projects with external clients, and some portion of accounting or creative services and so on some of our more part-time clients. But the offices around the world are mostly doing, not all, but mostly doing what in Europe is called PCO, which is event management. They're handling, if the American Heart Association wants to have a conference in Hong Kong, our Hong Kong office, if hired, may help them execute that conference. So the global offices are doing association management in some cases, but primarily they're doing PCO. And our US office is the group that's doing all of the full service association management. What else can I tell you? So I can go on and on and on about association management, but it has been a fun 11 years, and my role has changed slightly over the years, but I've served as the executive director for 2 of our full service clients over the years, and also run a business unit for professional development and credentialing.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Dawn?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Donna Gupton. I work for AARP. So we have approximately 2,200 employees. We have 53 state offices. So some states have more than one office. That's why we have more. We have an office in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So we're based here. Our headquarters is actually down on 6th Street. And we have a corporate office also in Lakewood, California. We have about 40 million members. Hopefully all of you are members. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask, but I'm hoping you are. And then I think the last question was, what's my...
what do you really like about working in the sector?
What I love about working for AARP and in the nonprofit is the feeling every day like I'm making a difference. So we fight every day for the 50-plus population, fight for health care, we fight for Medicare, we fight for affordable wages, we fight for living, we fight for everything. And that's what I love. I mean, I love that I feel like, you know what, I've worked in the for-profit prior to coming to AARP, and we answered to a different, it was a different motivation, and so that's what I love.
You know, it's so interesting you say that, Donna, because I think it reminds me, I don't know if you all have heard this, but John Kennedy was down in Florida in the NASA program, and he ran into a gentleman who was cleaning the floors, and he was working, clearing up the trash, and he said, "And what do you do, sir?" And he said, "We send a man to the moon."
That's right.
Right? That's what you see in the association sector, so it kind of gets me a little bit clenched, because I think very often we all have our friends that people talk, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm an accountant." But very often my colleagues in association management will say, "I work for this group, we do this, and here's what I do." And so that's kind of a nice, I think you highlighted that nicely. So I'm going to, in the interest of time, because I want to be sure Rebecca has time, and I don't know how much we can go over. I'm kind of looking at our friends who are organizing this. But so I'm going to skip forward a little bit, but you all can comment on whatever makes you happy to comment on as well. I have a question for you about senior job seekers and tips in general. You heard me touch on some tips and speaking association needs. So what are tips you might have for more senior job seekers, and what are your thoughts on finding work in our sector as an older worker? I mean, I think we can't have our blinders on. Ageism exists in every sector, and we're not immune to that, but would love your thoughts. I think you all have been in hiring manager roles. So who would like to, anybody want to jump in? I feel like I put Carmen on the spot.
I will start.
All
So,
right. This is why I can do it.
Yeah. So with APTA, I always enjoyed really being in the healthcare industry. So that was where my passion resided. I did take some time off to raise a family, but coming back into the work environment wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. So what I found that even though I, was really passionate about healthcare, I really had to improve my skills. So I had a certain skill set, but how do I really go about improving that skill set, look at different ways on how I could demonstrate that skill set. So I would say for my tips to everyone in the room is that always be a learner, okay? So don't ever give up on learning new skills, and don't think that you're past that age to ever learn new skills, because with me, I rose up through the ranks really quickly at APTA. In every single position, I had to learn something new, and I was always open to learn something new. I was always allowing myself to find different opportunities to learn something new. So I wasn't intimidated about that at all. I felt that I brought something to the table, but with that, what could I continue to build upon in what I brought to the table? So I would just say, just leave yourself open to learn new skills.
That's terrific. Thank you, Carmen. Anybody else there?
Sure. So I think with an AMC, one of the things that was a change for me, because while I've been at this organization for 11 years, I came from the nonprofit world where I was more mission. What I did and the organization I worked for was very mission-based, and I'm a former teacher, and so that meant a lot. And so when I came to MCI, I think I thought that it was going to be more about the association I managed and the mission, and it still is. And don't get me wrong, the people that work for us care a lot about the mission of the organizations we manage, but there is a lot of there can be fluidity between clients. So sometimes we find that this person is maybe not the best fit, but they're a good fit over here, or that this client is increasing their revenues and they want to staff up, and so we're going to increase the number of staff we have dedicated to that client. So it's not to say that people, it's not about their mission, but it is more about the work that we're doing for them, and how to implement their strategic plan and their overall mission. So I think walking in, interviewing with an AMC, emphasizing your skill set and the flexibility that you may be open to, if you are open to it. And I think being able to be flexible is key when it comes to working for an association management.
And I also say that don't think your skills don't translate. You saw all the list of things that associations need. So it's kind of timely. My organization is finalizing a senior hire for our chief communications officer. Those skills translate from for-profit to nonprofit. I mean, we aren't selling products necessarily. I mean, we are, but not in the same way that a for-profit, Apple was trying to sell you an iPhone. But we're trying to sell why our industry is good for society, or why a standard needs to be implemented in our industry, or whatever it is. I think I talked to a number of marketing communications PR folks in the room. Just as an example, that really translates. We need people to, when you're going on the interview, talk about how you've executed PR campaigns in the past, because association knows just as much, if not more, because we're not out there like for-profit companies are with marketing dollars and things like that. So they definitely translate.
I was just going to add 3 things. Translate your competencies, your skills, your experience they translate. So don't feel confined, and this is my personal opinion, don't feel confined if you've been told your resume needs to be 1 or 2 pages. We were talking about this. My resume is 4 pages, and I'm proud of the experience that I have. I've been in HR for over 30 years, so I'm not going to shortchange what I did in the 80s and the 90s just to cram it on 2 pages, because those critical things that I experienced and I did are important, and they do transfer. So resume transfer, networking, critical, exactly what you're doing here tonight. Continue to do that. And then the most important thing, and I think you mentioned it, is cover letter, or someone mentioned cover letter.
Yeah.
Do your homework, build a custom cover letter per each position you're interviewing for. Don't generic cookie cutter it, because people want to know that you've done your research, and people want to know that you care and you want to be there and what value you're going to give.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, can I just add on to what she just said about networking? Oh my goodness, I can't tell you how so important that is. As someone who's kind of adverse to networking, but it is so important, and the exposure that you get with networking is really key. I have had the pleasure of being part of the Diversity Executive Leadership Program with ASAE, and it's like the best program ever. It's mostly catered toward, of course, underrepresented minorities, LGBT community, African Americans, Asian Americans, and it has been a wonderful program. And even though I feel that I've done really well in the association space, I'm working for an organization that has a wonderful mission. I mean, how many have experience with a PT, physical therapist? Okay, half the room. Yeah, so a wonderful profession, but the exposure that I've had through this program, and it's mostly about networking. And when I've not been able to actually have access to high-level CEOs or other association executives, this program has actually allowed that to happen. So I would also say, just keep your mind open. I mean, ASAE is such a wonderful resource to look for programs as such.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Carmen.
She didn't pay me.
And I want to be mindful, respectful of our time, because I know one of the reasons that you're here is networking, and we're coming up to that latter half of the networking time. But I want to give Rebecca the opportunity to run through some of the resources, a little bit about who we are and some of the resources we have available to you, and then we'll make some final comments, and I'll ask each of you for kind of a last word, and then we'll wrap up with maybe a few minutes over, but I hope that that's all right.
So I'm going to zoom through some ASAE resources and also Association CareerHQ, which is sort of the reason Jennifer and I are here. Gonna give you some stats and then lots and lots of resources that Donna and were talking about. So ASAE is pretty big, but we still have a lot of target members. We were founded in 1920. And we're a hybrid organizational and individual membership society. So our members could be the National Retailers Federation, or it could be somebody who works at an association. Right now that we've hybridized our membership, we represent more than 39,000 association executives, and we have industry partners representing more than 7,400 organizations. And those span all 50 states, and I think more than 50 countries throughout the world. So our members, again, are managing leading trade associations, they're working in professional societies and other nonprofit organizations, and their roles are providing industry research, education, and advocacy on behalf of our community. We talk to our members about being sort of the mothership of associations. The easiest way for us to explain to people what we do, sort of like Sarah, is it's not always easy, but we say we're the association for association people. And some people get it, some people don't. But we like to say internally that we don't save lives, but our members do. So we're really acting on behalf of associations who are transforming society. We have a really robust research program through our foundation, and they act as a sort of source of learning and future-oriented research for the sector. They have a lot of great resources, which I will go over in more depth, but basically their job is to push information about the sector, advocacy, and show the role that associations have in society. There are a few different ways to get involved in ASAE. Membership is truly valuable. Not just saying that, but there are a few ways to get involved as an individual. You can have an individual membership if you are working at an association, or you can get involved as a consultant. And that means that you are giving expert advice to association professionals. We have a lot of career coaches, for example, who have come out of a career change. They've gone into consulting and served the sector that way. So individual membership is priced around $325 a year for professionals, $475 a year for consultants. If you want to know more, I can tell you more. There's a lot of good resources on our website, which I'll direct you to later. With a membership, you get a subscription to some of our publications, like Associations Now. If you have not visited it yet, associationsnow.com is an excellent digital publication. It covers a lot of timely fodder. Can't use my words, but it's all it's sort of a more news-oriented resource to clue you into what's going on with the sector. If you're prepping for an interview, it's a really good resource to kind of find out what's going on. You can also access certain resources at a better price point than you could as a non-member. I'll talk a little bit more about our compensation tools and studies that might be useful to you in your search. You'll have full access to asaecenter.org. That's our main website. Some of that content is available to non-members, but at some point you'll hit a paywall, so it helps to be a member. And then, most importantly, you have amazing networking opportunities. I think the sector really is about who you know, and it's hard not to create a robust, diverse network if you just show up. And again, asaecenter.org is our main site. I think we can probably send these slides afterwards, so you can click through. And then Association CareerHQ. Jennifer gave a brief, or Ken gave us a brief overview. Association CareerHQ is the career center of ASAE. It is not just a job board, but it does have a job board. That's our heart. And it's a great resource whether or not you're a member of ASAE. It's accessible to everyone. So we brand ourselves as the premier provider of career and talent management resources for professionals who lead, manage, and work in associations. We think of ourselves as having four kind of core audiences. One is people who are looking for a job actively. One is people who want to be proactive about their career. So I'm not looking for a job, but I really want to get promoted, or I really want to be more involved and prepare myself for that next move. And then we also think about recruitment on the employer side and talent management. So, I'm a new boss, what do I do? Or, oh, I really need to hire this executive director position, what do I do? So it's a good content-rich site, but our job boards are hard. We usually have between 350 and 500 searchable job postings. It varies with the economy and with the season. So right now, we'll be on the low end. In January, though, we'll be popping, so check it out. And just some data, I love some data. In our fiscal year, which is September through August 2017, we had more than 5,300 association nonprofit jobs posted. Those do include AMC jobs and a few kind of odd jobs here and there, which I'll talk more about. And more than 2,800 of those were in the DMV. So, like Jennifer mentioned, the association world is heavily concentrated in DC, Chicago, California, New York, Texas, and a lot of our jobs are going to be in DC. You don't need to be an ASAE member to use Association CareerHQ. All of our resources are free, not free, but available to members and non-members. And we have a lot of programming available as well, which I'll talk a little bit about. But first, the job board, which is what you're probably most interested in first of all. These are the top 10 categories that employers put on their job postings. And I will say, you'll see typical association-ish roles like membership, meetings, expos, and program development, which can translate to learning, stuff like that. What is on the rise is marketing, IT, I don't think it made it on here, but graphic design is slowly creeping up. It's more of a technical job, so we don't see as many of those on our board. But you'll notice that number 10 is other. And that's because certain organizations will be, say APTA, might have an actual physical therapist practitioner working to help them build an accreditation program. So you're not going to be necessarily an association employee, but you will be working for the association. So there are ways that you can very, very much be an other. Let's see. Again, the job board's the heart of our website. I suggest having an open mind because it's very much a general association job board. It does have a pretty robust search function, so I'm sure you guys are familiar with Indeed, Monster, etc. Big ones. What you'll find.
Don't do it.
I agree, Ken. I agree. Come to us. So we do have a robust search function. I highly recommend sorting by location and also what kind of opportunity you're interested in, category. That'll help you kind of get through the jobs something you want. You do have the ability to create a personal profile, upload your resume to our database, and I can tell you a little bit more about how that works if you're interested. It sounds like some of you are already taking advantage of that. And there are a couple ways you can set up job alerts that, like Ken was mentioning, that will push jobs to you. It's like 3 a.m. every day, overnight, that it's an automatic push. And it comes from the way you search through the site. So again, be mindful. If you're open to marketing opportunities and PR, communications opportunities, create several different searches so you can hear and find out about the jobs that are coming through. And again, Association CareerHQ is very much a job board, but it has a lot of content around it, most of which is free to users. We have webinars, probably about 6 a year. We just had one today. It was all about how to get great job references and recommendations. There'll be a recording of it on the site around Monday or Tuesday. And those are free, they're pretty highly attended, and they're really great thought leaders in the sector and outside of the sector, so I highly recommend those. And then we have several services you can pay for through our site. We do have resume critiques and writing services. There are sort of scaled versions of those, so there's like a $29 version for a quick, let me give you some quick feedback, and then there's like a mid-level resume with cover letter that's more expensive, but it's also much more thorough. We do have a large cadre of career coaches who I would highly recommend checking out. I want to say we have 20 or so. We've added 4 this year. I'm really excited. And these people have had at least 3 years in career coaching with association and nonprofit clients. They're also heavily invested in the association sector, so they're not just like, oh, that's interesting, like my advice will apply. They get it, they understand how to speak the language, and they can coach you into being more of an association-ready professional. We do have a reference verification service, and that's where somebody calls your references on your behalf. If mysteriously you're not getting from interview to offer over and over and over again, they can find trouble spots or figure out, oh, that reference you used from 10 years ago doesn't remember you, can't say a lot about you. That's what our webinar touched on today. And then there is a bit of a pullout of associations, ASAE's association salary and compensation data. So we have a little snippet. It's free, and the goal is to push you into buying the ASAE version. But I will say the ASAE compensation interactive is a really good resource if you are looking for salary data, if you're thinking about negotiating a job offer. Like Jennifer was saying, a benefits package is more than just the first number you see on the page. And it's a good resource we can talk more about later if you need some grounding in negotiating that. You can find out more on Association CareerHQ. I do have one final note that I forgot to mention earlier. One thing that you might notice as you scroll through our job postings and click through is that you're going to see something that says CAE Preferred. The CAE is ASAE's credentialing program. It's the Certified Association Executive. It's basically the mark of a dedicated association professional. And you'll see that folks who have spent a lot of time in the sector often will have the CAE. And it says, I have taken courses to understand association management, the sector, etc. So a lot of our job postings are going to say CAE Preferred. Do not be deterred by that, but understand that means we really want somebody who understands our sector. So don't bumble in and say, "Can't wait to work for your company." They're not going to do that. But you can emphasize that you understand the roles and the impact that organization has in the world. So ask me more after this if you're interested in signing up, or if you've already signed up and have feedback on the site, let me know. And I think that's all.
Thank you.
Rebecca.
Yeah, so we're gonna give our panelists, if you don't mind, one last word. Yeah, Rebecca. Well, as we say. And I'll just close out on the resources myself by just saying, so all of you may actually be members of associations. If you have a credential, that credential may be associated with an association. They may have job boards. They may have career resources, continuing education. So I just always highlight that sometimes people don't think to look back to their associations that they may be engaged with. I don't know what directions your searches and your transitions are going with, but think about that. And if you're looking to pivot into somewhere new, an association can be a great starting point. Because they will often outline for you what that career trajectory could look like and provide supports along the way. So I'm going to close out. Oh, and I'll just say too, the foundation has just produced, our foundation has produced foresight research. If you are at all interested in what kinds of things are impacting the association sector, it's 41 areas of research that are impacting the sector, and it's a great tool to get to know what's happening. The association business model is changing, and you can imagine why. So really understanding what's changing and what from your experience can help people navigate that change is really going to be important. So
what was this? I'm sorry.
Yes, it's called Foresight, F-O-R-E, Sight, seeing.
Okay.
And it is the ASAE Foundation, so if you go to that asaecenter.org and you look across the top, you can link to our other sites. On microsites, the foundation is one of those. So if you're just interested in seeing what are the issues that people are wrestling with, that's a great resource.
So it's called the 41 Drivers of Change.
41 Drivers of Change. Jason,
So I would say if you're looking at a job posting or you're getting ready to interview, one thing to do that she mentioned was go to guidestar.org. I do this just when I'm talking to other organizations, like, I wonder what they do. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You have to sign up for a free login, but it provides all the public IRS filings for the organization. And unlike some of the for-profit filings that are hard to swallow, these are too, sometimes, if you're not comfortable with it. It gives salary information for the highest compensated employees, information about the number of board members, the number of staff during that fiscal year, major programs and what their revenue and expense were for those programs, a lot of other things that are just yes, no check boxes that you can like, oh, they deal with public policy, or they have a political action committee or something like that you may not get from the front page of their website or their annual report or something like that. So guidestar.org, you can search any nonprofit organization that's required to file with the IRS. I do it all the time. just being curious about other organizations.
Last word, stay positive. Stay positive and stay upbeat.
And AARP has outstanding career resources as well that speak specifically to seasoned professionals and are, I believe, I met your career center person, and are really starting to do some, I think, new things in the area of career. So
we have lots of resources on AARP.org.
Yeah.
Can you talk about Life Reimagined? Is that?
So Life Reimagined, actually, we kind of retired Life Reimagined. The website is still out there. It's a great website. So we took those resources, so the name Life Reimagined, we took the resources and pulled it into AARP.org. So that's some of the resources. So the resources and the tools and the tips and so forth are still there. The rebranding, though, we just pulled it under AARP. So it's still valuable, still, so we had just created a different kind of entity. And so when people really, AARP is a highly trusted name. So we're like, okay, why not use the name that people trust? And so we just pulled it under. But it's still there.
So it's still offering support for people trying to get back into the workforce?
We actually have added to it. So if you go out to AARP.org and look at entering the workforce, look at work, whatever, there's a whole thing on working jobs, and enormous amount of resources are out there. Those plus a bunch more. Thank you. Very good question.
I would say one, networking. And if you are interested in a particular industry or area, go check out, just Google because you'll find then 3 different associations or foundations that are in that particular industry. And take a look at their website. See, even if they don't have something posted, a job posted at that time, or AMC as well, I should say, not just individual associations, but go onto LinkedIn, see who's connected, who works there. Maybe there's a third person, a third connection that you know. And because one of the things that we do is we might interview somebody or we network with somebody and we don't have anything at that time, but 6 months later we have an opening and we have that pool of resumes or pool of people that we've met with or networked with, and we'll go back to those people. And I really like that person, and I talked to them at such and such event. And so that networking ability is really key.
Yeah, actually, Sarah took mine, which was networking. So because our founding association space is actually very small. Jennifer mentioned there are millions associations, nonprofits across the nation, but it's still a very small group, and it's good when you network because when something does open, they can say, oh, I met her the other day, she would be great. So I think networking is very important. I will also say that when you're looking at the different associations, if you have a certain passion for something or certain core values, I think that's really important too, because looking at that association that has that mission that you really believe in, it really helps you in your career too, because now you represent a profession or an entity or a trade that you really have passion for. So I think that's really important too. So look for one that has kind of shares the same core values and mission that you would want in your life too.
So I just want to thank these folks. They came out after a long day of work. So thank you very much.
And on behalf of 40 Plus, we'd like to thank each of you as well. Little mementos of your time with us and your valuable insight.
And we have gifts for you too. It's the holidays.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
We have one more
To be honest, I looked at it.
we have one more round left.
I was curious. But now it's
Closest to January 1st. Who's our first 2018 birthday? January 18th. Any other bids? Any other bids? All right. This is a present from an association colleague, Beth Z, whose name in the world is the nerdy BFF. So it's the big book of apps. So you look like an apps person, an apps expert, and you're going to become an even bigger one. So, you can also keep that. And just one more thing, outside of the table, we've got our calendar for January. Tonight's program has been very specific and very special. You got one. But in January, we return to some of the core functions in the job search. So again, every Monday morning, as many of you know, we're here at 10 o'clock. The topics we're going to cover in January on Mondays include negotiating the job offer, which we're all going to be doing in January, right? Yes. How not to network? We heard about the importance of networking. How not to do it now, how not to do what not to do.
Passing a
Fear busters.
I don't know.
How do you use fear to your advantage in networking environments and other places? And then developing your personal marketing plan, which is not your resume, it's not your LinkedIn profile, it's your plan for how you're going to contact those key companies and organizations that you want to pursue and how you're going to move forward with that. And then our evening event for January 18th, right back here, a little different topic because we've got the holidays coming up, but then what happens in January? The bills come up. So we're going to have 2, perhaps 3 panelists talk to us about how do you generate income during your transition. Those short-term cash options. that can be out there. Perhaps it's consulting, perhaps it's leveraging your skills and resources in a consortium with other people in transition as well. So something to look out for. So a wide variety of topics coming in January. Please join us. Please tell your friends. And once again, let's thank our panelists and speakers. Let's continue networking. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you to Ken and to